Hello to all table tennis enthusiasts. Today, we'll talk about the Palio AK47, which consists of yellow, blue and red. We'll focus on one important point that I think many of you will find interesting. How exactly do the Palio AK47 rubbers differ from Japanese and German tensors? When comparing the AK47 blue and AK47 red rubbers to Japanese and German tensors, you can find diametrically opposed opinions. From now on I will call them by the word paleo for ease of pronunciation. We'll leave the yellow rubber aside for now. In terms of speed and versatility, it doesn't really fit into this comparison. But the two fast rubbers, Palio blue and Palio red, are often compared to Japanese and German tensors. Some players believe that the Palio tensors are just as good as expensive German and Japanese tensors, but they come at a much lower price. That's one opinion. Another opinion is that these rubbers are only suitable for playing outdoors and are completely unsuitable for serious training. These two diametrically opposed views make you wonder, what's the truth? I've personally played with these rubbers, or rather, I tested Palio yellow and blue, but didn't play with them for long because they didn't quite match my playing style. However, I played with Palio red for several months. After comparing my own impressions with numerous reviews, I understood the main differences between these rubbers and Japanese or German tensors. We're not going to talk about the price now because you can already see how much the Palio rubbers cost compared to, for example, tensors from Tibha or Butterfly. Let's talk about the differences in their behavior during play. Some players get Palio rubbers and play with pleasure, not understanding why they should pay so much more for expensive rubbers. While others, after trying these rubbers, quickly part with them because they can't play with them. So, what's the reason? The difference is that Japanese and German tensors usually have a very grippy top sheet. When you lightly touch with a topspin, the ball immediately grabs onto the rubber. For players who play this way, this grip is crucial. The Palio red and blue rubbers do not have this fine grip, which explains why some players find them unsuitable. For those who don't use this kind of fine grip in their game, these rubbers can be very comfortable to play with because the lack of such grip doesn't create any problems. By the way, while I'm sharing all this rubber information, please hit like and subscribe. Likes don't click themselves. It's important to note that rubbers with fine grip have a downside. They react strongly to incoming spin, which leads to additional errors when playing against heavy spins or receiving serves. On the other hand, rubbers with less pronounced grip, like Chinese rubbers, react less to incoming spin, which can be an advantage for players who block a lot or have difficulties receiving serves. As for the Palio red and blue rubbers, it can be said that for those who don't use fine grip, these rubbers might suit them well. But it's important to understand that they are not interchangeable with Japanese and German tensors. Rubbers with fine grip have their pros and cons, and the lack of such grip also has both advantages and disadvantages, which can be either beneficial or detrimental. Now, I've come up with another thought that might explain why the ball sometimes doesn't grip the Palio rubbers as strongly. Palio red is a pretty fast and stiff rubber, with a very short contact time between the ball and the rubber. This puts higher demands on the player's technique. If a player doesn't execute their technical stroke accurately enough, the ball might not grip the rubber well enough, and it will drop. In other words, it will fly lower than expected. For players with good technique, this rubber is quite suitable, but for those just starting out or who don't have sufficient technique, it might be too difficult to control. Additionally, if you put such a fast and stiff rubber on a fast and stiff blade, the result will be even worse in terms of control. The ball will bounce off such a racket too quickly, and controlling it will require very precise technique. By the way, what do you think about this? A question for those who use or have used Palio rubbers: did you ever feel like the ball didn't grip, and how did you deal with it? Perhaps it's not just the rubber, but the combination of the rubber with the blade, as well as the player's overall technique. As for AK47 blue, I can say something similar, except it's noticeably softer than Palio red. It's not soft, but much softer. At the same time, the top sheet is not thin and easily stretchable. It's thick and doesn't allow for extremely fine control over the ball. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. No, I personally didn't have any issues. The rubber handles all the elements I needed very well, slow topspins, medium and powerful topspins, blocks, and chopping in the far zone. So, I tested Palio Blue in all aspects, and it performed excellently. And it works well in defense if you approach it from the perspective of an aggressive defender, not as a defender who just chops with an inverted rubber. So, both Palio Red and Palio Blue are fully functional rubbers without any major drawbacks. What this video is about are the specific characteristics of these rubbers. Characteristics and qualities that some people like, others don't, some players find suitable, while others feel uncomfortable. Thus, it can be said that this series of rubbers is fantastic, but it may be disliked by players who enjoy playing with the top sheet often. Players who prefer to control the ball very finely during attack and on serves. The Palio series tensors are designed for a more power-based game. Less fine grip, more aggressiveness and power. They perform excellently on blocks and in defense. They offer noticeably more control in all technical elements compared to well-known Japanese and German tensors. And, by the way, due to their construction, the Palio rubbers are much more durable. People often report that after 6 months of active topspin play, the center of the rubber remains clean and undamaged. So, friends, come by our store more often and buy these excellent rubbers. And if you have any questions about the equipment, feel free to ask via the contact details on our website.